So let's see if Simon and Bill are joining us. I see. Yeah, they are here. Bill, can you hear us?
I can, Zoltan.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hi. All right. So we just wait and see till Simon comes online.
Okay.
By the way, you are on a large screen at the Ritz-Carlton. Everybody can see you now. All right. So Simon is already here. Simon, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well.
Can you hear Bill?
I can hear perfect, Zoltan.
All
Thank
right.
you for
So you
having
guys
me.
have the virtual screen right now to kick things off.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sultan. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure hosting yet another fireside chat of the fireside series. And today, I'm particularly pleased to welcome Bill Pascrell with us. Bill has certainly been very instrumental for the introduction and development of the remote gambling sector in America, be it in sportsbook or be it in iGaming, that being casino games. And it's a particular pleasure today to converse with him, take stock and take a step back and recontemplate about a few aspects of the iGaming market in America. I think we will touch upon different themes, reaching from online gambling to sportsbook to also poker, where Bill has also influenced things. And we'll speak about your family genesis, where we have as many as, I think, 3 generations now relating to gambling. So this should indeed provide for a rich and luscious recipe for a very both entertaining and very informative half an hour, I trust. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Simon.
Most
it's
welcome.
Great to be with you, Doctor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. I would also invite everybody, of course, in the room, in person or virtually, to send us questions. I trust this can either be done through the chat function here or possibly by Sultan helping us on the spot to collect questions. So, of course, we encourage everybody in the room to also put forward their thoughts. Bill, why don't we start with family and how you relate to gambling, and I think then we can also speak about your father, who has been very important for the cause of regulating gambling in America. And I trust after a few words on yourself, we might also briefly mention the next generation, right?
Yeah. Doctor, it's certainly a pleasure and a privilege. I want to thank Zoltan for always being so very kind and generous to me. I want to apologize to the audience for having to listen to us on a screen. My best intentions were to be there. I just got back, as the good doctor knows and Zoltan knows, from a conference and a bunch of meetings in California. And I'm now headed to Europe next Monday, but I have to spend a little bit of time with the family this weekend. So Zoltan, thank you very much for giving me the privilege to be able to speak to this beautiful audience this afternoon to you. It's 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. here in New York area. I live in New Jersey. I'm born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey, which is the 3rd largest city in the state of New Jersey. My grandfather came to America from Italy, William J. Pascrell Sr., no education, worked on the railroads as an Italian immigrant, and came here from Caserta del Vecchia in Naples, Italy. along with my grandmother. They met later in life in America, but my grandmother is also from the same region. But one of the things my grandfather, Bill Pascrell Sr., influenced on the family, and I was very honored to be able to be in my grandfather's presence for many years until he passed at the ripe old age of 96. Education is critical. So he raised three children, my father and his two sisters. My dad is not a lawyer. He's a school teacher and a college professor by profession. Later in life, he got into politics at a very low level, working the streets and labor unions, and ended up becoming the chairman of the Democratic Party in the county I hail from, Passaic County, then becoming a legislator in New Jersey, and moving up the ranks to becoming mayor of his home city, which is a pretty daunting job. Patterson is a challenged area, full of European immigrants from the 1800s. And then as waves of immigration came in, those various demographic groups took over. And then my dad, in the early 90s, ran for the United States Congress, having passed on at one time. This is what I would call the end of the George Bush Sr. era and the beginning of the Bill Clinton era. My dad won. He defeated a Republican incumbent congressman. Why is that relevant to this conversation? He was, along with Congressman Barney Frank, who hails from Massachusetts. Barney Frank is no longer in Congress, but was the first openly gay member of the United States Congress years ago. Now it's not, that extraordinary to come out, but we respect the LGBTQ community. And Barney, who was a major player, my dad was just getting his sea legs. They were the sponsors of the online gaming bill. And we'll get back to that later. When my dad was in the state legislature, he also was involved in a degree of multiple iterations of various regulatory legislation that came along the lines. I would not say that he is significantly impactful on the industry, but he's been significantly impactful on me. He's raised us the right way. We understand the importance of what's right and what's wrong in doing the responsible thing. And he instilled in me a great sense and flavor for politics. And if I may, Simon, shift a bit, I don't want this to be a monologue, but one of the proudest things of my life is being a dad. And I'm a dad to four children. I have a 7-year-old, Arialia. I have a 23-year-old, soon to be 23 in another week, Megan, my two daughters. Megan is in her last year of college. She's taken a 5-year program. Christopher, who has his own hospitality business. He's 27. And my son, Billy Pascrell IV, William Pascrell IV, who we call IV, Roman numeral 4. He's 30 years old. He's an attorney. And he did something pretty extraordinary. He wanted to come out of law school a few years ago and come work for me. His grandpa did not want that. My partners didn't think it was a good idea. They thought he should go out and learn. So he had a clerkship after he graduated from Seton Hall University Law School, which we'll talk about in a bit because there's some legacy there. Yeah. He took 3 days off of his clerkship working for a superior court judge, what's called the assignment judge of our home county, which is a pretty significant job out of law school. Good way to learn. Took 3 days off and went to a boot camp that I've established at Seton Hall through the good efforts of Entain Foundation. I've represented GVC and Entain, which all of you in Europe know well, for 13 years now. He went to that Gaming Compliance and Integrity Boot Camp, which is a part of the Gaming Institute that I've created at the university, on his own. Paid $1,500 US And as a result of that, at night, he would go out to drink with some of the participants and attendees, and bumped into a client of mine, bet makers out of Australia, publicly traded in the horse race industry. He's now celebrated his 2-year anniversary as the U.S. General Counsel for that company.
Amazing.
That's something I'm very proud of.
And you were not aware of his attendance at Seton Hall?
When he showed up, and it's funny, Simon, and God bless everybody in the room, and thank you for tolerating me on the screen. This pandemic, global pandemic, has impacted all of us in various degrees, and some more than others. But it was 3 days before the global shutdown or the U.S. shutdown. And he showed up, and I was surprised and thrilled. He's loving his job. As I said, he celebrated his 2-year anniversary. I'm very jealous because he's making far more money than I could have ever dreamed of when I was 30 years old. And he's very excited about the industry. He's meeting regulators and legislators and governors and other gaming organizations, which is a really nice way to start a career. And I think someday he'll fully appreciate the vast network he's building and what that means for his progression in our beautiful industry.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this wonderful outlining of the family genesis, how it relates to the gaming sector. Really fascinating to have that family background in it. You, of course, we shouldn't forget you. You have shaped greatly the development of gaming in the US. And if I may mention a few other factors, I understand from our pre-discussions that we have identified a couple of factors that have really helped to advance the regulation of online gaming. I mean, of course, there was the famous decision by the US Supreme Court, May 2018. And then we have also the impact of advertisement by the major leagues. Maybe we can also speak about Sheldon Adelson and the importance of the Trump administration, right? Why don't we start first with, maybe Sheldon Adelson and Donald Trump. It's two factors, right? But they're intertwined, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah. Do you want me to go, Simon?
Absolutely, please. Yeah. Everybody is thrilled to hear how this has impacted the development of gaming.
I like, it's very, very frustrating for me because I'm a very animated person. I want to be on that stage in Budapest, and I want to be looking you in the eye. I am not just, and Simon knows this, and certainly Zoltan does, I'm not just another talking head. I am passionate about this industry. I said this 14 years ago in London, at London Ice, which was my first London Ice. Europeaners are far more advanced, sophisticated, and experienced at the online gaming industry than Americans are. We're getting there. We're in our infancy. We're in our nascent form for online gaming in America. As I hope most of you know, and if you don't, you're going to learn through the next 20 minutes or so, online gaming is only 8 years, approaching 9 years old in America. New Jersey was the first state to launch poker and casino. And then, of course, 4 years ago, the explosion of sports betting. Europeaners are far more superior in this regard. However, Europeaners oftentimes, and I think it's better than it was 13 years ago, are not as experienced. Why would you be? In the American political system? It's different. Each country has their own culture and localization. The three best things that have happened in recent history for the explosion of online gaming And there's many verticals there: horse racing and lottery, esports and poker, casino, and sports betting. Was the demise, the death, and I don't say that flippantly, of Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson died at a ripe old age 18 months ago.
Maybe we should briefly say who Sheldon was. If for the people who don't know, we have to mention Sands, I assume, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Sheldon Adelson was the CEO and top gun of Sands Casino, brick and mortar casinos. That is a global organization. They're in Macau. They're in multiple jurisdictions in the U.S. and throughout the world. But Sheldon and I, although we agreed politically on our position on the state of Israel, we couldn't disagree more on online gaming. He was a major force and a thorn in my side in many ways. And I'll give you an example. Sheldon Adelson is a big Republican donor. Sheldon Adelson donated legally, I would assume, millions of dollars, north of $60 million, to President Donald Trump's campaign for president. Sheldon Adelson also spent $3.5 million trying to get at me by running a campaign against my father in 2012. He put up a rabbi, Shmuley Botek, to run against him. And my father did not spend that kind of money, but was able to win with a healthy 25-point margin. But he was out to get me. Because he thought that I needed to be shut down, that I was the voice for a greater part of many years for online gaming in America. We were successful. We got it done in multiple states, and then we continued to work down the pathway of getting Pascrell repealed, which we'll talk about in a minute. So Sheldon, God rest his soul, I don't say it flippantly, but his demise, his death, in January of 2021 was a significant boost to the online gaming industry in America, because he was funding many Republican governors' campaigns as well, which is some of the reason why we're still a little behind the curve in online poker and casino. Yeah. Number two, the defeat of Donald Trump in November of 2020, although he still hasn't recognized he lost the election. He certainly has. And God willing, he never comes back. Now, I know that the premier of Hungary is very close to Donald Trump, and that's his prerogative. And what Donald Trump represents politically is not my point at all. This is not a political conversation. Donald Trump was very, very negatively impactful on the industry because of Sheldon Adelson and his relationship with him. For a great part, although Trump would never admit it, his dependence on the mother's milk of politics, the cash, for his political campaign.
And of course, one can't help to realize the short framework within which those two things happened, right? We're talking about half a year. So
Trump lost on November 7th of 2020, and Sheldon Adelson died 65 days later, January of 2021.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the context of Donald Trump, we also have to mention the Wire Act and that famous controversial interpretation by the Department of Justice, right?
Well, that was the play. The Wire Act, which is a federal law that dates back many years, was interpreted through my lobbying efforts by the Obama administration as permitting online gaming as long as the jurisdiction approved it. So it was federally permitted, but you can't cross state lines. So, if Jersey passes online gaming and you live in Pennsylvania, you got to go across the border to go into New Jersey, so you geolocate there. Obama in 2011 his Justice Department interpreted the Wire Act in a favorable way that allowed then Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey to sign the Online Gaming Act, which I drafted in collaboration with Sheldon Isai Scheinberg, from PokerStars. And the other important development, just to kind of put a bow around this, the election of Joe Biden, which I was extremely involved in and happy to be. He was the senator for a long time from Delaware, another state which has embraced online gaming. It's one of the 6 states that has both casino and poker. He was a good thing because he's not against it. I wouldn't say he's a voice in support of it in a big way. He's got many other fish to fry. But those 3 things, the demise of Adelson, the defeat of Donald Trump, and the election of Joe Biden, have allowed us to have a nice runway forward. And hopefully we'll continue to expand and bring more states online for poker and casino.
And indeed, you did mention already that then it was Governor Christie who first introduced the first regulated market in the US, that being New Jersey. We will also speak about Isai Scheinberg in a moment, I trust. But maybe we just visit briefly the third factor that we pre-discussed, which was the impact of the major leagues in the US. If you could briefly comment on that role.
Yeah. So I am not a big fan of one particular professional sports league, which may come as a shock to some people. I love sports. I've played sports. I love football. I love baseball, basketball, college sports I love, but I do not care for the NFL. I think they are the biggest hypocritical organization on the face of U.S. soil. Why is that? I managed to lobby and get a ballot referendum passed in New Jersey in 2011 to allow for sports betting in New Jersey. PASPA, which Simon talked about before, the Professional Amateur Sports Protection Act, is a federal law passed in Congress in the 90s that allowed every state 2 years to legalize sports betting. And ironically, only a couple of states did it. And one state launched, which is Nevada. They've had it forever. If you did not pass the law within 2 years of PASPA becoming legal, then you were blocked out in perpetuity. Senator Bill Bradley, I would imagine many of you know him. He's still alive. He was a New York Knickerbocker professional basketball player, not originally from New Jersey, from the Midwest. He moved to New Jersey to run for U.S. Senate. He was in the Senate for quite a long time and ran for president of the United States against Al Gore, and obviously wasn't successful. He was the sponsor of PASPA. There's a whole story behind that, which is not worth getting into now because we don't have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. PASPA, I began the 10-year campaign, getting it on the ballot, getting the enabling legislation passed, working with Governor Christie, and then the NFL came in and got an injunction with the federal courts to stop us. And why is that despicable, in my opinion? And why is the NFL hypocritical, in my opinion? Forget about what's happened in the NFL with battered women. Forget about what's happened with brain injury. The reprehensible behavior, in my opinion, is that the NFL has been benefiting from gambling on sports in Nevada for decades. They get a clip of the ticket, their logo's on the top of the ticket. And yet they were saying that by expanding regulated online sports betting would be detrimental to the NFL because it would impact integrity. What about what's going on in every street corner in every major city in America where the bookies are taking bets illegally? So obviously they were defeated after 10 years significantly. And my client, who was also involved in a partnership with me, Monmouth Park Racetrack, Dennis Drazen, secured, and he's not allowed to talk about it, but I can. He secured a significant 7-figure penalty from the NFL because the NFL precluded New Jersey and many operators from benefiting from sports betting. Now we have 36 states, 31 of which have launched, and it's doing well. And the NFL is benefiting from it and supporting it. And you would think they were a part, like many organizations try to take credit for sports betting progressing in America. They were our biggest enemy.
Yeah.
And now we're working together with them.
Yes, so this is quite hilarious, right? How sometimes people, organizations, for whatever ideological or other reasons, don't seem to realize that there are win-win situations ahead, which obviously there is, right? There would have been all the way, but they fought this very, very ferociously. And it's thanks to your efforts also that this could be overcome. So we have now mentioned the impact of Sheldon Adelson, the impact of the Donald Trump administration, how that was different under Obama and now under Joe Biden. We have mentioned the Major League NFL factor. We can then maybe just briefly touch upon this famous decision by the US Supreme Court that really unblocked the situation for sports betting in May 2018. I believe you were sitting in court listening to the judges.
Yeah, Simon, this is a really tough part of my life. The 10 years was daunting. People were losing faith. So we passed a ballot referendum. Then we passed the law. Then the NFL came in and shut us down on January of 2012. And that campaign with the courts began. Governor Christie is a Republican. As I've said, I'm a Democrat. We worked hand in hand for that 10-year period, all the way up through May of 2018, May 14th, 2018, when the Supreme Court ruled in a significant decision and a significant majority position. But the important thing to note is Judge Michael Shipp, S-H-I-P-P, grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, where I'm from, went to the same schools I did, is from the same neighborhood I'm from, and is only a year older than me. His brother played in the NFL. He got the case 3 years after he was put on a bench. Obama appointed him to the bench. So he was a fairly new freshman judge. He got this case, ruled against us, ruled in favor of the NFL and many of the other major sports leagues and the NAACP. They were all the NCAA. They were all together. Then we appealed that case, and we lost the appeal in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, Federal Third Circuit. And then we went back and crafted a new law, because we already had the constitutional authority to do it, because we had to amend our Constitution. And that began the generation of the case that led up to our win. Shipp ruled against us again, but the Third Circuit Court, in an en banc decision, which is the entire court, usually it's only a 3-judge panel, we got 3 judges to rule in our favor, which allowed us to have a little bit more juice to appeal to the Supreme Court. I wasn't surprised the court took it. I convinced Governor Christie to hire Ted Olson. Ted Olson represented the state of New Jersey, and Robert Clement represented the leagues. And the irony of that is I was with Robert Clement in the famous Bush v. Gore decision when we had that hanging Chad issue in Florida, when, Gore and Bush were going back and forth, and Ted Olson supported Bush. So it was kind of funny. But going into that courtroom in the winter of 2017, I think it was November, December, was a wonderful experience. And then one of the more prouder moments of my life was getting that Supreme Court case on a spring morning in May of 2018. And not only did my emotions swell, but my business just took off. So every major sports betting operator who I'd been talking to and who was not really keen on listening to me anymore because they were losing faith began to jump in. And all the major companies that are successful in America are pretty much predominantly from Europe. They're not American homegrown companies.
Yeah. So fascinating. If I remember correctly, it was a clear decision, 7-2 judge decision. So that really unblocked the whole thing and led to this, would say, almost explosion, right, of the success of gaming or sports betting regulation in the US. I'm very of time, and I'm asking Sultan to give us an extra 5 minutes. And I'd like to raise one point with you, which I find really interesting. You are heavily involved in the Entain Foundation, US Entain Foundation. There's an international section and the US Foundation. And that foundation sponsors or supports responsible gambling initiatives. And I find that a highly relevant topic because historically, I would argue in the US, the major policy concern typically has been the prevention of crime, keeping the mob out of the business, certainly in Nevada, for obvious historical reasons, because the mob was heavily involved in the casino business back then. How about responsible gambling? How do you see that development? Is it important? Where is it important? Do you see significant differences from state to state? Is it a growing issue, or not a growing issue, but is it let's say, is there given growing importance to the matter?
Yeah, this is my new passion. I've represented GVC and Entain now for 13 years, and they've paid me well. They've treated me excellently. I love the company. I love the new CEO. I think Yetta's doing a wonderful job. She hails from your area, Simon. She fully understands and embraces what I'm about to share with you. The seminal issue, the issue that is going to either make or break this industry in America, is whether the industry understands and embraces the importance of creating a sustainable gaming industry through being ahead of the curve and self-regulating in responsible gaming. So I've been asked, in addition to my daily job with Entain, and I'm not in-house, I have my own company, Princeton Public Affairs Group, which is a lobbying and regulatory affairs and law legal company. I was asked by Shai Segev, the then CEO of GVC before he departed and Yetta came in, to organize a board with Martin Litschka, the head of regulatory affairs and responsible gaming for Entain, and Amani Toomer, who is a former New York Giant, which is my favorite football team, and Super Bowl champion, hails from Michigan State. Amani is on the board of the US Entain Foundation, which is focused on integrity and responsible gaming. If America does not treat responsible gaming seriously, it will be our demise. We are one newspaper headline away from some politician's son or daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister, going down a black hole because of gambling addiction, from being pounded upon. We have a nice open market for the most part here. We don't have many regulations coming down from the regulators. We do have regulatory awareness. We are starting to see a little bit of increase in gambling addiction, certainly not to the rate that the UK has gone through And we've all seen what the regulatory reaction to that has been. So we need to stay away from allowing the industry to do what the brick and mortar casino industry in America did for decades. I grew up as a brick and mortar casino lobbyist. I saw this firsthand. Any casino executive in America that tries to dispute this is full of hot air. The American casino brick and mortar industry, which is a very vibrant, awesome industry, did have some negativity. They used to treat the gambling addicted customer as the VIP customer. Let's give them another marker. Let's keep them at the table. We do that in the online industry, it will be our demise. And I think the online industry, Kindred and Entain being two of the leaders, are getting that and trying to educate the rest of the industry.
Well, and here, you did mention that the European online industry is obviously more mature because it has been coming for a long time now, or from a long history already of offering online in Europe, regulated offering. And that can be the opportunity now in the US, right? That you are working with companies for which that is not a new topic, but a topic they have been pursuing for a long time. And I can say in that context that also the predecessors of the same company, of Entain, have started to sponsor very valuable and important research in the US long before. I can just mention, for instance, the example of the collaboration with the Division on Addiction, the Harvard Medical School that BVIN started, and that was taken up again later on. And I remember Martin approached me about it, and I had myself the privilege to work at the division about 10 years ago while working on my PhD and meeting Howard Schaefer. So Martin was very instrumental to actually retaking up that initiative. And that collaboration is also, I think, very important for the development of the know-how and expertise on what we know about gambling addiction, indeed.
Yeah, very much so. As a matter of fact, Simon, in about an hour, I'll be joining two other guests at a panel on the importance of RG and the comparison between Europe and the US. So I guess we're sort of wrapping it up here. I want to thank you. I want to thank my dear friends, Zoltan and Betty Turndick. I want to thank Alex. Certainly you, Doctor. I want to thank Paul. I want to wish everybody a great rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you in an hour.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bill Pascrell. And let's give Bill a hand, even virtually.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Don't be alarmed. This is not Zoltan. I'm Jasper. I'm also a member of the organizing team, and unfortunately, Zoltan had to run out for a second due to some administrative reasons. I'd like to thank you for this amazing fireside chat, and thank you for being here. We are extremely glad to have you here, even though it's only in this online format. But we were glad to have this discussion. And with that, this is the end of the first part of the day. And I'd like to tell you that now we will have our lunch break.